And we're back after a brief break. You're watching South Texas Now. I want to thank all our contributing sponsors and also CBS, NBC, CW, and our contributing and always sustaining supporter, Lopez Broadcasting on radio, and also just a great friend, Carlos Lopez. Thank you for all you're doing and for giving me my start. I appreciate it. We're back with Connie Scott, and we brought on a very special guest with her. We just scooped her off the street, and we renditioned her into my office, so she's here. And so let's go. Connie, you want to introduce your wonderful guest?
This is my oldest daughter, Kristen Garner.
Hey, Kristen, how are you?
We kind of surprised her. She didn't know she was going to be part of the show. She came to observe, but she's very excited to be here.
Well, you never know what can happen on TV. It makes for good TV. But you heard what your mom had to say in the first half, that she's a self-made woman, essentially. I mean, she didn't go to Yale or Harvard, neither did I. And, grew up in South Texas. She grew up in Luling, but I think we had a lot of the similarities in our growing up, not together, but your mom and I have a lot of similarities. We made it out, in other words. But coming from that background and growing up, and maybe I wouldn't say, I don't know your background. So why don't you tell me about your background and being the daughter of Connie Scott?
Well, I grew up in South Texas and went to elementary school in Sinton and then finished at high school in Cal Allen. I am the mother of 3 and I have 2 stepkids, so we have 5, my husband and I. He owns a transportation company in the area, and I'm a full-time mom, so I help a little bit with our local business and try and help my mom out a little bit with the campaign stuff. We're very proud of all that she's done, and in the first segment, her talking about her upbringing and honesty, we're very proud of everything that she's done and where she's come from, and think that she'll be a great asset to Nueces County.
Even though, I can see, obviously, you all are the top 10% of affluent people in America, which doesn't say much, right? Doctors and lawyers join that group. Doctors and lawyers join that group. But you all are making something, right? Now, I was preparing for this because I saw, interestingly enough, the top 0.1 and the top 0.001. They live in the Hamptons. They invest and sell short and hope that stocks will drop in America. They're not making anything. They're holding all their money, and they're not spending it. And I also saw something very interesting, that 65% of people that used to be hardworking men and women like you and I had 65% of the wealth in this country. Now it's down to less than half. And all of these ultra-rich of the rich, and so there's a misnomer, a misconception that the Republican Party is representative of that. Could you clarify that?
We are just basic, hardworking people. We go to work every day. My husband he's semi-retired right now. He still owns his company, but he's had some health issues, and he's had some issues with his eyesight, so he can't drive anymore or anything. But most of what they've done after being in business for so many years together, he can do over the phone or meet up with somebody, or their contacts are made. They have great people working for them. They have a great business that supports this community. We're proud to be a part of this community. We don't like talking about those things. I know in politics it's kind of not the norm, and we're supposed to stand here and say we've been part of the Buck Commission and the Buck Rodeo since day one, inception, 30 years of that, 30 years of supporting the livestock show, 30 years. That's just not the Christian. We do those things because we want to for our community. That's not something that I want to blast on my Facebook post or on my website or on a flyer going out to somebody. I believe we're all vested in this community. We should be doing those things, but we shouldn't have to put them on a flyer for you to vote for me or not vote for someone else or anything. I think we have to get away from listing our goodwill
I won't
Goodwill
see
should
what
be,
you all have done on
yes,
TikTok.
yes. No.
Okay.
No. Oh, you don't need your name on a plaque saying you've done something. You don't need a reward for that. You're supposed to do it. That's the Christian is you're supposed to do it for your community. You're supposed to do it for your fellow citizens. You're supposed to help when you can. I mean, the Lord has blessed my family tremendously. My children, my grandchildren, our family, Mike's family. He has 2 girls as well. We are tremendously blessed. But I think that Scripture also tells us that you bless others. God gave it to us for a reason, not for us to stack it up in a barn or have the wealth just for ourselves. I think you're supposed to help people that truly need help, and we believe in that service. We believe in helping others.
What about those secularists out there who have their belief they have their right to believe or not believe, and say, well, aren't you not separating church and state with those comments?
I think you separate church and state by all means, but this country was founded on the principles of Christianity and treating others with the Christian values, with those same, the morality and faith, and step in anytime you want to. I think this is what our founding fathers meant with the Constitution, with that. The leaders of our communities, the leaders of our state, the leaders of our country, we're supposed to have those basic principles embedded in them to make the right decisions. I think just like getting elected to go serve in Austin, I said earlier, when we had a supermajority, we did not need a single vote. I can't tell you how unpopular I was a couple of times on a piece of legislation that I invited the opposite side there to have input. And there was one particular incident where this legislation, and I won't mention any names or who anything was or anything, but it was basically the Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse versus the trial lawyers. And I invited the trial lawyers to come in and have input on this piece of legislation, and their lobbyists. I told them to go to a room, you work it out. I'm on the House floor. It's at the end of session, and you know how those times go. And a piece of legislation or the amendment was sent to the office. We filed the amendment, and then I get this person calling me off the House floor and chewing me out and just chewed my staff out. And I was like, look, we turned in what you gave us or what was given to us. I invited you to the table. I would not have invited you to the table if I wasn't going to listen or anything. You were supposed to turn it in by such and such time, and I can't help it that you didn't turn it in. Get it turned in now, and we'll make another amendment. That wasn't our intent. That's just not the kind of person I am.
Well, and this goes to both of you. Yeah.
Pleasantly surprised that it wasn't an intention of ill will. It was basically a misunderstanding, but we've got to quit like they were, yelling and screaming or chewing out my staff. It's like we all immediately react, and instead of coming to the table and saying, look, can we do this, or this was wrong, let's fix it then. It shouldn't be a battle. It shouldn't be something under the table. We should be able to sit down and discuss these things.
Well, as a healthcare lawyer who defends doctors and healthcare providers, it's one of my specialties. But on the rare occasion I sue a nursing home or I sue a bad doctor who has messed up 11 surgeries and left people crippled and disabled and disfigured, weeding out those bad doctors, to be honest, it's very hard to get them unlicensed. It's the very, very select few. And I've talked to a lot of conservative people, church-going people, people of the conservative movement who have said, if I had known that this would have closed the courthouse doors for me, I would not have chosen it. And doctors that are personal friends of mine said they promised us that insurance rates and malpractice rates would go down, and they didn't. So was this an agenda from the insurance company that made bad investments to push this agenda, but also have the collateral effect of keeping doctors in the community? And that goes to both of you.
Yeah, and I don't think it was an insurance agenda. Or I assume you're talking about tort reform.
Yes.
And the legislation.
When dinosaurs walked the earth. Yes, 20 years ago.
Now, I was part of that movement and part of I was the director of Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse at
Yes.
the time, and there was never an insurance movement in it. There was not, and I can honestly tell anybody that there was no insurance money involved in that for us. But we don't lobby or legislate. We were just getting activists here in our community motivated. Our intent was to help people with legitimate cases be able to go, where our courts were so backlogged with things that weren't moving forward and aren't. And just because something bad happens to you, it was never supposed to be just a free-for-all for someone to just gain money or support themselves for the rest of their life. Are we against lawsuits? No, never. Are there repercussions sometimes? It's like with any piece of legislation. It was like with the, there was something I was just talking about the other day with legislation that maybe you have to go back and you have to correct it again because the intent of the bill was not meant to do that. Maybe there needs to be insurance reform. I mean, you talk about insurance. We've all gotten our insurance bills. But insurance continues to go up.
Windstorm.
Windstorm
Yes.
is the total atrocity. The fact that 14 coastal counties could be excluded out of any insurance, I mean, to me, that is horrible, horrific. We don't do that in this country.
Loss of homes.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
only that, but subprime mortgages, predatory
Yes.
lending, assets instead of building businesses. You want to weigh in here?
I do.
Oh, go ahead.
Just because of, as far as being against, or why we were so much for the lawsuit reform, just an example, in my husband's business in the last year, we've been sued 5 times for a truck we traded in. We were no longer owners on it. I mean, this was years ago, and they continue to find different lawyers to sue our business on. Every time they sue our business on a truck we haven't owned in years, just because we were listed as one of the owners on it, we have to defend that. We're a small business. I've had 5 different attorneys sue us.
Big business have all of the arsenals, right? Small business, which is under $20 million, we have to go hire a lawyer. We've got to shell out $10,000 every time. Got to protect ourselves. I represent roofing companies. I represent doctors, and everybody thinks doctors make over $1 million. That's not true. Yeah. And we're about out of time, but I'd like to give you guys the floor, the last 30 seconds to tell the audience what you think and about what we can change. We can get to your goals this year at another show when the political window opens up. But what would you guys like to say in the last 30 seconds to our audience?
I'd like to just say that while it probably wasn't something I was expecting running for office again, I served 10 years ago, and I was honored to do so. I do think that I bring something to the table. I do think that I can help this community. I would like the opportunity to bring this community back together. No matter what happens in my election, I believe we can do better. I think that we should do better. We should do better by all of our citizens. This election, one way or another, is not about being Democrat or Republican. Even if I get elected, it's still a 3 Democrat, 2 Republican court. We have to learn to work together. We have to learn to come together and find solutions for our citizens. We have to. You were talking about before, not on camera, about the overcrowding of our jail. We have to work things out here. We have a great community. Let's keep it that way, and let's not forget who we are and the little petty differences and balances and innuendo that goes on, because we all want to live here. We want it to be a great place for our kids and grandkids. My family lives here. My entire family is going to end up here. We want the best for this community. 10
seconds, see what you got.
I don't really have anything. Thank you for having me. I mean, I really agree with everything. I'm very proud of my mom, and I really think that she can do great things for Nueces County. I think that people are a whole lot more alike than people believe.
They're different.
And I think that you can, with keeping the respect and willing to work with people is what we all need across the country, I think. The cancel culture needs to...
Well, we're out of time, but I want to thank everybody for joining us. And remember, this is not a political show. This was about activism, and this was about educating people on the political system, and this is not a show that substitutes for legal advice. But we're out of time. I'm getting the cane pulled off stage here. Bill is telling me that we've gone way over, but it has been wonderful. Thank you all, and God bless.